In a previous interview, you talked about struggling throughout the season. So what changed and how are you able to turn the page so that the end of the season went a lot better?
It was important to get to know her off the court because I do think that, connections, getting to know people really play a part in the success of teams. Beginning of the season, my playing time definitely looked different than it did at the end. So trusting that, I was staying ready, putting in the work so that when I did get the minutes out on the court, that I could take full advantage of them. So I was just really proud of myself for trusting the process and staying. All part of the transition is really tough. Everybody out on the court was one of the best players on their college teams, definitely the best player likely from their high school team. So it's just this mishmash of the best basketball players. And then you're playing against people that have been there for years. And
it's sick that we had lost so many games and also feeling like we were better than that.
What happens when a high draft pick becomes one of the WNBA's most unexpected comeback stories after sitting on the bench? What if I told you that Caitlin Clark was the driving force behind it all? This is Lexie's true tale. Hala's journey of self-doubt, perseverance, and atonement, as well as how a rookie's passion rekindled a squad and a career that had been forgotten. Now let's get started. Most fans had already begun to forget Lexie Hull by the beginning of the 2024 WNBA season. She was picked 6th overall in 2022 and was once heralded as a future star, however she ended up slipping trough. The Fishers' Nessa, a former Stanford champion who is now confined to the sidelines, has become a shadow, perched, ignored. It appeared to be written off. Lexie found it difficult to settle into a groove in Indiana under head coach Christy Sides. Christy Wallace and Katie Lou Samuelson, among other players, were receiving minutes that may have once was hers, and the murmurs began to get louder. Was Lexie Hull a bust in the draft? Had she already reached her full potential? Then everything was different. Let's introduce Caitlin Clark, a highlight machine, a generational talent, and a leader with the kind of spark that is uncoachable. Her entrance in Indiana was a seismic shift rather than just a big thing. From the first day, the Indiana Fever was completely transformed by Caitlin's presence. The offense changed. Something unexpected occurred as the chemistry clicked. The career of Lexie Hull began to take off once more. Lexie just opened out like never before in an eye-opening interview with She's for Sports and the Dunker Spot. She didn't sugarcoat the difficulties, she faced the truth head-on. Rather, she disclosed what was taking place behind the scenes and how her career was changed by playing with Clark. Lexie wasn't only sitting on the bench, you see. For no apparent reason, the Fever was in disarray. The season had a disastrous start with 8 losses and 1 win. There was low morale. There was a lot of tension. The locker area felt like a pressure cooker, and fans were upset. The rotations were irregular. The defense is falling apart. There were only more questions and no answers everywhere you looked. However, as the headlines accumulated, Lexie was silently grinding on criticism. She worked diligently on her movement and doubled down on the fundamentals. Her timing, her shot. She was aware that she might not have many opportunities, but she needed to be prepared if one did present itself. She wasn't by herself either. Players like Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell were encouraging her behind the scenes, motivating her, preserving her soul. Although it wasn't simple, a change was in the works. Next, Caitlin Clark entered. The entrance.it resembled turning on a switch. Practices were illuminated, the vitality increased. Scout team exercises felt particularly demanding. In practice, we play against guys, Lexie chuckled. If they don't succeed, Caitlin is making every effort to ensure their competitiveness. It was leadership of the kind that compels everyone, not just passion. Help level up those around you. The court vision that Clark had was not genuine. Because of her ability to predict plays before they happened, defenders appear disoriented, and awareness like that, the rest of the squad, including Lexie, felt the same way. Suddenly, hope existed. Lexie was no longer invisible all of a sudden. However, how much of an impact did Clark have? And at what point did Lexie Hull move from being an overlooked backup to one of Indiana's emerging stars? We'll reveal the pivotal moment that nobody anticipated in the following section. Keep an eye out. Lexie Hull wasn't merely receiving. Fortunate, there had been a fundamental shift. Caitlin Clark contributed more than just star power and scoring to the. She brought vision with her illness, and that vision changed everything. Hull was suddenly catching passes in certain places. She was unaware that these were available. Hull said, "She's seeing plays I didn't even know existed." Still amazed, when you share the floor with someone who does more than just play the game, that's what occurs. She views it as 5 moves ahead on a chessboard. Clark's aptitude for reading defenses and making difficult passes. Not only was it stunning, but it was revolutionary. The offense of the Fever changed. Movement had purpose once more. Cutting served a function, and that was crucial for a player like Lexie Hull, who had been waiting in the wings for so long. Her confidence increased, her spacing got better, and she at last started to feel like more than a role player. However, it wasn't all about the passes or even the points. Something much deeper was being ignited by Caitlin Clark's competitive fire. Anything cultural, whether it was a sold-out arena or a Tuesday scrimmage, didn't matter to her. She wanted victory. And her teammates sensed it, and they began to have faith in their ability to succeed and feel like they belong. It was best characterized by Hull, knowing that you're cutting with a genuine possibility to make a difference makes the game much more enjoyable. Have fun. The Clark effect is that she increased everyone's hunger and sharpness. The offense no longer appeared to. 5 people began clicking together like a single machine. Was this momentum sufficient, though? Would it be sufficient to remove a terrible 1/8 start? But when the strain was at its highest, would this newly discovered chemistry hold up? It would take time to get the answer. Many fans were unaware that the true reversal didn't begin in the spotlight. During the grind, it began. The Fever turned into a team at that point. Lexie remembered heated scrimmages that were less like battles and more like walkthroughs. The tone was set by Caitlin Clark. She would call things out if it wasn't functioning. Directly and loudly, Hull remarked, "Caitlin pushed us to fix anything that wasn't right." Here's the thing. Nobody was upset about it. They got up for it. Coaches began to take notice. The practice's tone shifted. Drills turned into duels. And in between the sweat and the scrimmages, a true identity started to take shape regarding Lexie Hull. The shift was internal as well as external. She focused on the details, making quicker selections and sharper cuts. More reliable shooting. She also made the most of the Olympic break. We practiced for a full month. She clarified, and the confidence I'd been looking for finally clicked when I saw my percentages rising. Hull had stopped watching from the bench by the time the second half of the season rolled around. She was involved, identifying open lanes and making plays. Completing cuts that Kelsey Mitchell and Clark opened up like clockwork. According to Hull, Kelsey and Caitlin attract a lot of attention. This makes it easier for players like myself to move and score. All of a sudden, the overlooked draft choice was turning into a vital component of the Fever's attack. Here's the question, though. In this new system, how far can Lexie Hull actually go, and is this merely a revival or the start of something larger? Stay tuned, for this story's next installment has the potential to change the course of the Fever. After that, it began to click. At last, Lexie Hull's tireless efforts started to pay off. Her shooting percentages were increasing. She was making key moments, clever plays, and huge shots. No longer merely conforming to the. She was having an effect on the system, and the victories, they trailed behind. At one point, the Indiana Fever suddenly began to string together after counting outward triumphs. Everyone then began to inquire, what was altered? The solution, harmony. We never betrayed one another. Hull revealed, this team survived because of their mentality and reluctance to give up, even in the face of the most heartbreaking defeats. Their transformation from underdogs to playoff contenders was made possible by this, and the crowd took note. Did they notice, huh? Previously vacant seats were now crammed into the rafters. Arenas let out a shout. Social media took off. All of a sudden, once more, Indiana was giddy with pride. We felt a certain energy when we performed in front of a sold-out audience. With a hint of emotion in her voice, Hull recalled how we hadn't felt in years. It's difficult to explain just how. That means a lot. This was more than a run of victories. This was atonement. Caitlin Clark was in charge of the vessel. Beside her, Lexie Hull was getting up. Every member of the squad was benefiting from one another. Furthermore, the Fever weren't merely making headlines, they were expressing their opinions. They had no intention of sneaking into the postseason. Their purpose was to redefine what basketball for the Indiana Fever. But something else emerged along with that new prominence, something that nobody truly cautions about. About you, because success transforms your entire life, not just your stat sheet. The increase in Fever wasn't just felt on the scoreboard. It followed them into their daily lives and into commonplace locations like the neighborhood grocery shop. Lexie Hull was suddenly unable to have a cup of coffee or pick up a few items without being stopped for a selfie or a discussion. Fans wanted to express how much she inspired them and how much she meant to them. It was endearing. It was bizarre. It was draining. The new reality was this: every performance was praised, and every game was analyzed online. Or criticism. Each social media scroll has the potential to cause self-doubt, and regardless of how powerful or concentrated you are under increasing pressure. Lexie acknowledged that it's a necessary part of the job, but it's challenging, even in the midst of a career. Nevertheless, Paul experienced quiet periods of uncertainty even while she lived her dream. Shortly after difficult defeats, even the cheers in the arena seemed to be drowned out by the clamor on the internet. There were times when the effort seemed insignificant, because fans don't often recognize the emotional impact of victory in that area. Thus, the query arises, When the spotlight just becomes brighter, how can you maintain your composure? When everyone is looking, how can you safeguard your mental game? Your every action, we examine the real price of success and how Lexie Hull is learning to bear it in the following section. However, this squad managed to maintain its composure in the face of notoriety, pressure, and ongoing scrutiny. The Indiana Fever relied on one thing that has consistently worked for them: one another away from Twitter, behind closed doors. With headlines, they created a unique culture based on accountability and trust. The dressing room developed into more than. It evolved from a gathering place to a haven. A location where progress was encouraged and mistakes might be made. And nobody was left to deal with the storm on their own. They resisted being overtaken by the spotlight, they acquired the skill of standing in it. And continue to be authentic. This season was more than just basketball for Lexie Hull and her friends. It was about change, about discovering how to prosper in the face of unprecedented risks and demands. The Fever's 2024 season was outstanding in every way, from a depressing 1-8 start. Grit, trust, and leadership drove them to become one of the most dynamic teams in the WNBA. The return of Lexie Hull was more than just a tale. It was a masterclass.